It is always quite the spectacle in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, but this time the game definitely lived up to the spectacle and the setting. 52-49 USC over Penn State. Nick Dempsey from Conquest Chronicles in to break it down. Nick, where do we start? You said it before we hit the record button. Where do we start? And I suggested the final drive. 1:59 on the clock. 2 touchdowns. It battled back. Penn State goes on a great drive, or USC goes on a 80-yard drive with Sam Darnold pulling the trigger time and time again. A couple pass interference calls to set up at least the tie game before more craziness.
Yeah, that was craziness is the right word. I don't know how Sam Darnold continues to do it. It's like every time he takes the snap, he's playing like he's up by 5 scores. He just has that poise or confidence. I don't know what it is, but no matter what goes wrong, he didn't have much of a running game to speak of to back him up tonight. To come in there with no timeouts, 1:59, and just march right down the field. Now, in fairness, they did get 2 pass interference calls, but before Penn State fans start complaining about the refs, there was a bevy of poor calls. Folks from ESPN even started chiming in on Twitter for what that's worth. That the officiating was very lopsided against USC. So just calm down on the bad officiating before we get too far into it. Deontay Burnett you didn't hear his name much this season, but he had a couple of great scores against UCLA. He came up with 3 touchdowns. They found him in the end zone, 5 touchdown passes and 450 yards for Sam Darnold. That's insane. But we were a little worried though, because there's still, plenty of time left. About 1:09 actually, for Penn State. But that final drive, I'll tell you, a lot of those were poor decisions. He threw into double teams. He threw just passes that you shouldn't throw, but he hit the window, a very small window, time after time. The accuracy was insane. So to make those clutch throws down by 7 in a game where just about everything had gone wrong and seemingly just about everything had gone right for your team, that was a tremendous performance by that young quarterback. And wow, like he's probably got to be on the short list for the Heisman coming into next season for sure.
So on that the final touchdown, what made it very nice from the viewing public sitting on the couch was that ESPN showed the touchdown from so many different angles, from the back of the end zone, from behind Darnold, from field view, from a number of plays to get the of what he saw and how he anticipated Deontay Burnett breaking into the clear on the post and just getting that tight window where he was able to split the 2 safeties, throw it over them as well, and get it. The timing and the trajectory on the pass and everything was just, he made a number of those throws on this night as USC really, now if we back it all the way up to the opening kickoff, looked like a far superior team for a quarter plus in taking a 13-point lead, and it even felt like a 3 or 4 touchdown lead. The way they were dominating along the line of scrimmage, chasing around Trace McSorley, containing, really having their way offensively early.
Yeah, Trace McSorley didn't complete a pass until the final play of the first quarter. Let's point that out. Well, he didn't complete a pass to Penn State receivers, I should say. First 2 possessions for Penn State were both interceptions. Unfortunately, USC could only get 7 points out of that because Boermeister only missed an opening field goal off the first interception. But the first quarter, Penn State looked bad. But we knew going in, we talked about this, as you recall, relentlessly. Penn State was an average team in the first half in many of their games, and they trailed. And so only being up 13-0 in the first quarter did not give me a lot of confidence, because Penn State, that's just sort of what they do. So we were all sort of just waiting around for the second half. But we didn't have to wait that long because the second quarter, the second and third quarter sort of turned into like a Big 12 game. The two teams combined for 35 points in the second quarter and 36 in the third quarter. But after being up 13-0, the half ended 27-21. USC still clinging to a lead, but no running game. Very different second quarter from the first quarter. But
I'm going to make the distinction between this game and a Big 12 game just because some of the plays that were made on the offensive side came against tight coverage and exceptional defense. So guys weren't running around wild. Typically, it was guys like Mike Gesicki who caught the touchdown pass to get Penn State within 6 right at the half, making a twisting, diving catch. The plays that Chris Godwin made on the Penn State end were just unbelievable. 9 catches for $187, but it was more than the numbers. It was, the type of catches that he was making.
Yeah.
It was all over the place. The stars showed up for both teams.
Yeah, Penn State scored on 7 straight possessions. Let's just point that out. They 28 unanswered points. Chris Godwin, I cannot wait to see him in the NFL because that guy just continued to make amazing catches. I mean, McSorley played well, but Godwin really made his quarterback look good. Catch after catch after catch where you're just like, there's no way. Humans can't do that. And Godwin was doing it. And, USC, give him credit. They put Biggie Marshall on him. They put Adoree on him. They just couldn't seem to slow him down. But this turned into a real shootout. And after being up 2 scores, USC eventually found themselves down 2 scores. The third quarter is where Penn State really won this game. They outscored USC, I believe, 28-8. But USC won the fourth quarter, which is bizarre because in the fourth quarter this season, Penn State has been one of the greatest football teams in the country, if not the greatest. If Penn State played like they normally do in the fourth quarter for a full 60 minutes, Penn State could beat anyone in the country. So it was very concerning when they had a comfortable lead headed into the fourth quarter. The quarter they win, I don't think a lot of folks expected USC to not only win the fourth quarter, but come back and win the game. And that's exactly what they did. And they did it without Cam Smith, who was ejected. Shortly thereafter, Adoree Jackson left the game with what actually turned out to be an ankle injury, even though on the replay, it definitely looked like he screwed up his knee pretty hard. But the sideline reporter said it was the ankle. And then running back Justin Davis went down as well. So 3 key USC players went out of the game late, and they beat Penn State in the spot where normally Penn State dominates, which is the fourth quarter. Give credit to Sam Darnold for being clutch, but the defense, without 2 of their best players by far, came up with the stops when they needed to. Penn State was shut down in the fourth quarter. And this is after getting just torched all game long. The USC defense, when they needed to, made the stops. It's going to look like a really bad day on the stat sheet, but when it came down to it, they got the stops. And Leon McQuay, that interception, oh my goodness. When he dropped that interception on second down, my heart sank because I thought, oh, that guy had the game for him. And then when he came right back and picked it off, I mean, my goodness, to get another opportunity like that and then capitalize on it. Good on you for Leon McQuay. I'm really impressed by how the defense played in that fourth quarter. The first 3 quarter, well, the second and third quarter, not so much, but the first and fourth, unbelievable performance by the Trojans on defense.
Yeah, that's not typically where you would go for credit in a 52-49 win, but it gave time for the offense to get established and make plays and get a nice little comfortable lead that didn't turn out to last very long. Yes, when Penn State was just on fire, you said 7 straight touchdowns, that they came up big. I think for as entertaining as the first half was, and being 27-21 and Penn State making a run at it to get close, that Saquon Barkley 79-yard touchdown run that was just completely ridiculous, where he broke like 3 tackles, then reversed his field and outran everyone to the corner of the end zone, that got Penn State to its first lead of the game at 28-27, just kind of set the stage for just half that we saw on the offensive explosions and just the superior plays by the gifted athletes on both teams. And then, like you say, Leon McSorley, you live by the sword, you died by the McSorley, maybe could be said there, because how many times, I think the one big advantage that USC showed in this game, but it didn't matter during that scoring run by Penn State, is the defensive front for USC was better than the offensive front for Penn State. How many times did McSorley drop back to pass and immediately just had to sprint to his right to get away from 2 or 3 USC defenders, and then just heave the ball downfield or find somebody, and it usually worked out for him. But he trusted his wide receiver play just one time too many, and it almost burned him on the McQuay would-be interception the play before, when he had a guy that he thought was open, but should know that with that kind of speed in the secondary, that you just don't hang one up that late. And then he did it again, and McQuay makes the play to set up the game-winning field goal. Just a remarkable game.
And keep in mind, there was a point in the second half where Penn State had run all of 3 plays on offense, and they had 21 points off those 3 plays. I don't know how, if you're the USC defense, you don't just kind of completely deflate and hang your head and say, well, let's just try to keep it close and win it in a shootout. They came firing back, and I got to say, they could have easily given up, but they came out strong in the fourth quarter. McQuay stepped up, made an awesome play. Again, you're right. They gave up 49 points. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was a miraculous night for them by any means. This is by far and away statistically their worst performance, at least since Alabama. But when they needed to, man, did they ever make some stops. But McSorley, we knew Penn State in the middle up front was weak. And that cost them, because when they really needed to get a first down, they couldn't, and chew up clock, they couldn't just run it up the middle, move the chains. And McSorley, as you said, kept rolling out all night, almost as his first instinct, because the Nittany Lions just could not stop him up front. But he was fast enough to get to that edge, and that was one of the key points of concern for the defense, was being able to keep McSorley in the pocket and force him to be a pocket passer. USC pretty much couldn't do that all night. McSorley got the edge, and one time too many, I guess, or 2 times too many, but Leon McQuay timed it up. I guess when you have to keep hitting home runs, eventually you're going to strike out, and that's sort of what happened. But another thing, I was impressed that Clay Helton, even after the interception, rather than saying, okay, Sam Darnold's the hot hand, let's give him the ball and take a shot at the end zone because he's been doing it all night, he said, no, we're going to set up and give it to Matt Boermeister, who's already missed 2 field goals. And had he made either one of those, this is not an issue. We don't have to worry about this. So that's a gutsy call, a gutsy and or maybe foolish call. It worked out, so of course he's going to get credit for it. But it takes a lot of guts for you to say, hey, I know you're 2 for 4 on the night, kid, but go out there and win it for us. And sure enough, his dad, Boermeister's dad, a UCLA alum, I might add, the kid went out there and he nailed it through and gave USC the 52-49 win. Unbelievable guts, clutch performances by pretty much everyone on the team in that fourth quarter. There's if you would have told me that USC would win this game by winning the fourth quarter against Penn State, I would have told you that's not going to happen. There's just no way. But sure enough, that's what they did. They beat Penn State at their own game, which is dumbfounding to me.
Definitely a key point you brought up was that despite all the offensive fireworks for Penn State on this night and scoring at will in the second half, the stops by the USC defense and Penn State's inability, not because of Barkley, certainly because he's one of the best in the business.
Oh, yeah.
Because line was dominant over Penn State most of the night, or at least was the better unit. They could not get the first down when they needed it. They needed to move the ball on two different occasions specifically. They, in the last 8 minutes, any of those drives that Penn State would have generated any semblance of offense, the last 8 minutes, they could have salted away the game. But specifically, the preceding drive to the 80-yard drive by Sam Darnold, they had it in their hands to run some clock and put him in worse shape. Not a $159 with 80 yards to go, but 45 seconds left. If they get a first down, then they're in a real precarious position where it's almost impossible. They've got like a 5% chance of scoring the game-tying touchdown, or certainly with a $120 left on the clock to do anything just to get into field goal range. And they got a decent kick return to be able to win the game, and they could do nothing against the USC defense. So despite the 49 points and the explosion and the gifted playmakers on the Penn State offense, yeah, game balls go to the USC defense in the clutch. And obviously to Sam Darnold, not just for what he did statistically and what he did in the clutch, but as you mentioned as well, Nick, in the absence of what is usually a strong USC running game, Ronald Jones only had 55 yards on 20 carries. Penn State really did the job for the most part on Justin Davis and Ronald Jones. And so everything, 53 attempts, all on the shoulders of Sam Darnold and those tremendous playmakers on the outside for USC.
I did a halftime video on Facebook Live, and I basically said the way this game's going, if USC can't get the running game going, the margin of error for Sam Darnold is razor thin, if not outright non-existent. And sure enough, USC did not get the running game going, and Sam Darnold carried the game. He did have a couple of mistakes, that interception there that was returned back to, I believe it was the 5-yard line or maybe the 3. But his margin of error was razor thin, and he pulled it off. As great as the defense was at the right time, Sam Darnold was great all night long. Sam Darnold is the reason USC won this game. Make no mistake. It wasn't Rojo. It certainly wasn't the running game. As much as Clay Helton likes to say we want balance, that was not the case this game. But Sam Darnold just kind of took the game over on his own and spread the ball around. Everybody, all the receivers got in on the action. Everybody had a clutch play or a clutch catch at some point. Deontay Burnett, I think, was the big benefactor, getting 3 of his 5 touchdown passes. But they put this all on Darnold. His margin of error was razor thin, and he pulled it off. And for a redshirt freshman, that's just impressive. You have to tip your hat to the kid. And like I said, and this might be more of a curse than a blessing, but I think he's got to be a Heisman favorite next year going into the season. Certainly there's going to be a lot of hype around him. Not to say that McSorley won't be, because McSorley had a heck of a game too. Let's not take anything away from him. But, he made his mistake at the wrong time. And, one of his mistakes, he overcame the 2 early ones, but this was a game with all quarterbacks and a little bit of Saquon Barkley, but unbelievable by Darnold. And this is, come to think of it, another crushing blow for the Big Ten Conference in general. I think their only key impressive win today was Wisconsin beating Western Michigan. So not to say that the Pac-12 was killing it or anything, but this was I think going to go down as the best bowl game out of the entire season for sure. Maybe one of the best games in the entire year, unless Clemson and Alabama can have a real showstopper. This has to go down as game of the year, certainly bowl game of the year.
Yeah, it was definitely something else, and we certainly will discuss and dissect the ramifications of this game and the personnel setups for USC and Penn State, but specifically, obviously, the Trojans heading into 2017, but the future looks bright for both programs, and specifically, again, USC. 52-49, and you would think, despite 3 losses, the 9-game winning streak and the wins over some impressive teams, including this Big Ten champion, that USC would be pushing that top 5 ranking to close out 2016. All right, for Nick Dempsey, I'm Mark Rogers, and we will wrap it up right here. But Nick, we appreciate it.
What a great year this was, man. Well, final 2/3 great, but anytime, Mark.
Nick, we appreciate it.
Have a good one.